This video is sponsored by Keeps. For a special offer, go to keeps.com/pursuitofwonder or click the link in the description. Also, for those interested, I have a new book that just came out called The Art of Living an Absurd Existence. It's a collection of essays that explore various paradoxes, thought experiments, and big ideas of philosophy to help you better grapple with and revel in the absurdity of life. You can find the link for it in the description. Producing one of the most innovative and intimate works of philosophy of all time, creating an entirely new literary format that has since become essential to nonfiction, and challenging conventions of belief and thought, Michel de Montaigne is perhaps one of the most unique and underrated philosophers in history. Montaigne was born in France in 1533. Born to a wealthy merchant family, his father put a heavy focus on education. By just 13 years old, Montaigne understood Latin and had mastered the entire curriculum of the esteemed boarding school in Bordeaux, the College of Guyenne. In his 20s, he began working as a magistrate for the court of Périgueux, and he would continue working for the courts in service of the kings of France throughout his midlife. During his 30s, however, Montaigne's life would begin to change, as he suddenly found himself enveloped more and more by the looming shadows of transience and mortality. In 1563, when Montaigne was 30 years old, his best friend, Etienne de la Boétie, died, likely from the plague. Then, just a few years later, his father died from a long, agonizing battle with the kidney stone. Then, in a freak accident, his younger brother died after getting hit in the head with a tennis ball. It was as if the universe was making a tragic play of Montaigne's 30s, or perhaps setting him up to take control of the second act. In 1570, Montaigne began to retreat from public life, moving back to his family's estate, which he had now inherited. As if trying to finish the job, around the same time, Montaigne would have another close encounter with death. This time, it was coming after him. While horseback riding, another rider ran into Montaigne at full speed, nearly killing him. If that wasn't enough, not long after that, his first child passed away in infancy, only a couple months after being born. Needless to say, this concentrated period of tragedy and death changed Montaigne, altering his sense of what it meant to live and die, causing him to confront how short and absurd life was, and allowing him to realize what was important while he was still here. That year, he had the following words inscribed on wooden beams in his study. At the age of 38, on the last day of February, his birthday, Michel de Montaigne, long weary of the servitude of the court and of public employments, while still entire, retired to the bosom of the learned virgins, where in calm and freedom from all cares, he will spend what little remains of his life, now more than half run out. If the fates permit, he will complete this abode, this sweet ancestral retreat, and he has consecrated it to his freedom, tranquility, and leisure. By this point, Montaigne had withdrawn into almost complete solitude, locking himself in the tower of his estate with over 1,500 books. Here, he would read, write, and think, alone. After nearly a decade of this quiet and focused seclusion, Montaigne would emerge, and with him, he would bring his masterwork, Essays. Essays, originally published in 1580, is a large collection of short essays on a wide variety of topics, from sorrow, to fear, to education, to friendship, to solitude, and nearly everything in between. In these essays, we find echoes of philosophies like Stoicism, Epicureanism, and Skepticism. We also find a work of philosophy unlike anything of its time, and perhaps ever. What makes Montaigne's work so powerful and innovative is just as much about how he wrote as what he wrote. Montaigne wrote with a uniquely intimate, candid, informal, and often humorous style. The 20th century scholar and translator Donald M. Frame, in his introduction to the complete essays of Montaigne, argued that Montaigne wrote essays as a new means of communication in the wake of lost friends and loved ones, and the reader takes the place of the dead friend. Montaigne identified the objective of his writing as the complete and utterly honest exploration of the human condition. He wrote, "I want you to see me as I am, in a plain, natural, and ordinary way, free of pretense and artifice. I am the one depicted here. My faults and my very self are exposed for all to see, at least as much as public conventions will let me. Had I lived among those nations which, they say, still live under the sweet liberty of nature's primitive laws, I assure you I would easily have painted myself quite fully and quite naked." In approaching his work in this way, and in arguably staying true to this aim of candid subjectivity, Montaigne would produce one of the most original and personal self-portraits ever made. certainly from a philosophical perspective. Around Montaigne's time, and largely still to this day, philosophers generally regarded reason as the primary vehicle to be used to arrive at equanimity and mastery in life. Montaigne disagreed. Montaigne believed reason was a useful tool, but he did not believe the philosopher or intellectual who wielded reason in a superior fashion was any more capable of achieving states of mastery, success, or poise than anyone else. In practice, thousands of little women in their villages have lived more gentle, more equable, and more constant lives than Cicero, he wrote. For Montaigne, the mind is a feeble, fallible entity. Rather than purely rational beings, humankind is equal parts mad. Our life is part folly, part wisdom. Whoever writes about it only reverently and according to the rules leaves out more than half of it, he wrote. We are simply far too arrogant about who we really are and what we are really capable of. Intellectuals, of course, often being the worst offenders of this. Montaigne's work, in a uniquely subversive way, often mocks this quality of humanity, more specifically, the literary, philosophical, and academic tradition of self-bolstering and pretension. Montaigne was, in this respect, an intellectual who mocked intellectuals. And arguably, there is no greater mockery than mockery from within. When one is capable of doing something, but instead of doing it, they make fun of it, the mockery cannot be attributed to jealousy or ineptitude. Montaigne simply saw the foolishness in intellectualism. Rather than the theoretical speculation of traditional philosophy and academia as a means of philosophizing, Montaigne studied himself. I study myself more than any other subject. That is my metaphysics. That is my physics, he wrote. In service of this philosophical approach, Montaigne directed a notable amount of his work at the body. Particularly, he explored and described the often absurd conditions of the body and its implications on our lives. For Montaigne, the body is implicated in all our thoughts, and our thoughts are often implicated in the body. Our thoughts, formed out of the mind, which is, of course, a part of the body, are influenced by our physical feelings, desires, and sense perceptions. Moreover, the prospective realities of sickness, aging, and death permeate these feelings and perceptions. Whether we are a philosopher, writer, ruler, shoemaker, housekeeper, or anyone in between, we are all restrained by the upper limits of our mind, and we are all condemned to the temporary vessel of our bodies and the conditions therein. If you sit on the highest throne in the world, you're still sitting on your ass, Montaigne wrote. Largely inspired by the Stoics, Montaigne adopted the Stoics' principle of focusing chiefly on what one can control and disregarding what one cannot. And what one can control and depend on is oneself, one's own judgments of the world from within oneself. Not being able to govern events, Montaigne wrote, I govern myself and apply myself to them, if they will not apply themselves to me. With this, Montaigne embraces the inevitable messiness inherent to basing one's philosophy on self-examination. That is, contradiction, uncertainty, variance, ambiguity, and a continual process of uncovering and adaptation. Montaigne wrote, I may presently change, not only by chance, but also by intention. It is a record of diverse and changeable events, or undecided and, when the occasion arises, contradictory ideas, whether it be that I am another self, or that I grasp a subject in different circumstances and see it from a different point of view. So it may be that I contradict myself, but, as Demades said, the truth I never contradict. For Montaigne, truth, in terms of humanity's comprehension of truth, differs with different environments, cultures, times in history, perspectives, and so on. Because of this, he critiqued the upholding and trusting of popular opinions. Instead, he embraced a form of skeptical empiricism, which broadly means that he prioritized sense perception over reasoning as a means toward knowledge, but still viewed both as tools and both as fallible tools. Thus, all our understandings are merely hypothetical, temporary, and subject to scrutiny. Montaigne's motto was, famously, what do I know? Philosophy, then, for Montaigne, is not about finding absolute truth, but about uncovering, freeing, and expressing the self. It is the practice of free judgment from within the self. It is an art, the art of living. This art, like all art, is a process, a continuation of trying new ideas, perspectives, and modes of being. Fittingly, and of course intentionally, the title of his masterwork, Essays, means in French, to experiment or to try. Montaigne died on September 13, 1592, at age 59. He He continued working on essays up until his death, changing and adding to it, keeping the mirror that was his life's work steadily aimed at his life. Poignantly, Montaigne died of a disease known as quinsy, which often causes paralysis of the tongue. Before passing, this disease took Montaigne's ability to speak. Fortunately, however, unlike most individuals, past and present, Montaigne spent his life speaking bluntly and boldly, exploring and expressing the unique inner workings of his being before it was too late. He strived for and shared the truth of himself, which is perhaps all that we really have and all that truth might ever be. As Montaigne put it, to philosophize is to learn how to die. And arguably, that's what he did. He learned how to die and then lived in that light. After his death, his work influenced many seminal philosophers and writers to come, like René Descartes, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Blaise Pascal, Friedrich Nietzsche, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Shakespeare, and countless more. He is considered by many to be the founder of modern skepticism and one of the world's first truly tolerant, open minds. His writing gave way to the format that now permeates education and nonfiction, the essay. Montaigne's existence forged the path for this very piece of writing, this essay about his life, to exist. Ultimately, it is not necessarily that Montaigne said something profound, but that he embraced and expressed simple, ordinary things in an innovative and profound way. And that, arguably, is the task for us all. Again, for those who enjoy exploring ideas of philosophy and how we can better deal with and endeavor on our own absurd journey in life, I think you'll really enjoy my new book of collected works. It's an essay collection, one of my favorite formats, which is fundamentally inspired and made possible by the first essay collection, Montaigne's Essays. It's out now, and the link for it is in the description. There are, of course, no photos of Montaigne, but there are portraits painted of him. Though perhaps he may not have minded at the time, these portraits show that, like up to 85% of men, he lost some amount of his hair in his lifetime. It's only right that Montaigne gets a little roasted as well. For those of us who want to keep our hair in this era of history, and thanks to this video's sponsor, Keeps, we can. Our portraits don't need to contain thinning hair if we don't want them to. Keeps is an online subscription service that provides FDA-approved treatments that can help prevent hair loss and promote hair growth, as well as other hair products like hair thickening shampoo, conditioner, and styling pomade. Through an online consultation with a licensed medical provider whom you can message at any time, Keeps provides fully customized treatments and products tailored to your needs without ever having to go anywhere, and typically at half the cost of pharmacy prices. Keeps has helped nearly 1 million men keep their hair and has over 4,500 5-star reviews, which is to be expected when clinical studies have shown that treatments offered by Keeps are 90% effective at treating hair loss and can increase hair growth by up to 35%. Whether you're looking to stimulate hair growth, be proactive and prevent hair loss, or just take better care of your hair in general, Keeps is the solution. For a special offer to get started, go to keeps.com/pursuitofwonder or click the link in the description. That's keeps.com/pursuitofwonder. And of course, as always, thank you so much for watching in general, and see you next video.